So here we go. The dreaded window crank assembly on a Renault Alliance Encore. You can't get the parts anymore, got to find used ones. Somebody's been in this door a couple times prior to me getting it. This is an 87 GTA that I just got, 62,000 mile car. I was working on it yesterday, got it to work for a little while. Now it seems to be slipping again. But I think I found the idea. Let me take it apart and take a look, and I'll show you what I'm planning on doing, and if it can help other people, great. So here we go. So the biggest problem is the gear drive in here. Somebody's been in here once before. You can see these two screws. They've used that to remount this. The cable ends have broken off at one point in time. You can see, it's hard to see down there, but you can see it's been epoxied back on. That's not the problem. This nut here I've added is actually a strap that grabs the other end of the cable end and keeps it from sliding up and down, so it keeps everything in play. So that part I got to work. The problem is the looseness in this gear, and I think I got a way to figure out how to take the clearance up so you get the gear mesh a little bit better and the window works. I've already had this thing all the way torn apart, lubed everything, cleaned everything, got the cable sorted out, but now I see the cables all twisted up again. So I'm going to pull this whole regulator out, which is super easy. Two 10mm bolts here, one 10mm bolt here, and these are the access holes to get the two 10mm bolts to unbolt the glass assembly and just pull it up out of the way. So let's get that out and we'll go on from there. Okay, so here's the regulator out. There's your slide track that goes up and down. There's your cable that has your spiral cable in it, which, by the way, for future reference, never put grease on, just use light oil. It'll soak into the felt that's in between the windings and lubricate it. Grease, white lube, just gets gummy hard and just jams these things up. This system wasn't the greatest when it was new. I sold these cars new back in 86 and 87, and I remember the window crank assemblies even back then were kind of janky at best. So the problem is the drive gear right here. Now you can see somebody's been in this thing before. This has been epoxied to here, but it comes apart now. This is epoxied and stayed. I put the strap bracket on it. It locks this cable inside the door so it doesn't move. So this doesn't go anywhere now. But when it gets to the end here, because there's so much play at the top here, it actually pushes away from the drive gear in here. I'm going to put a sleeve inside here out of a piece of this tubing and see if that helps hold it against the gear and eliminate the problem where it gets loose at the end because the tension changes. And I think the tension changes because of the arc of the cable. So when you have this thing cranked all the way down, the cable is wound up here, it's tight, and it pushes up against the drive gear. As you start to unwind it, it gets loose, sloppy, and that's where you have the problem. I'm going to mess around with a couple little things. Let me see if I make it work, and I will bring that back to you in the next shot. Well, here it is all apart. I couldn't do anything with the gear, unfortunately, but once I pulled the sleeve off, which somebody epoxied on, it just slides back in, it stays in there, it gets clamped at that end so the sleeve will never move when you're cranking it. I took it apart, cleaned this entire cable out with a little prep sol, and then re-lubed it with some light oil, put it back together, and it really, really moves like with one finger now, where I couldn't even do that before. The other problem was, and you can probably still slightly see it, there was a kink right here. Let me see if I can get a little closer. There was a kink right here, which I got about 95% of it out. I'm going to try to work it a little bit more. And that was kind of pressing when it got up into this bend area up here a little bit. Actually, no. When it got into the tube area down here, it would cause resistance. So this thing has to be perfectly straight. So I got a little kink right here. The arch is okay because it has to wrap that way anyway. But I still got a little bit of a kink right here I can feel. And I'm going to try to tap that out and tweak it out. And I think this thing will be dead on. Oh, now that I got it all apart, cleaned up and lubed, the gear assembly works much better. It seems to stay a little bit more taut inside the gear, and that's it. So one more step. Let's see what happens. I'm going to put it back together, try it in the car, and hope for the best. Well, here it is. Full down, full up, no binding, no stripping. Took it all apart, made sure that the cable, the spiral cable, was clean and then lightly lubed. No kinks, no binds. The tube has to maintain a pretty much of a perfect arc all the way around. And then you got to tie it off, which I did right here. Otherwise it'll get pinched between the lifting arm and the glass, and it'll stop it about that far down. It'll stop it about that far down. The other thing I did was, this bolt here on the back side is a cable clamp. It grabs the tube. On the inside, if you see that bolt there, let me see if I get the camera in there. There is another cable clamp with a piece of surgical tubing around the nylon tubing so it doesn't shift. You can see the prior repair from previous owner where they glued it in, but the glue doesn't really hold. It's more of a sleeve now. And then on this side, let's see if we can get a shot up in here. Let's see here. Hold on, let me move the camera around. I know it's kind of a pain in the ass. And then this side, you can see that cable clamp holds the sleeve, and that's it. And if you watch it, I can't do two things at once while I'm doing it, but it doesn't move either. It's all locked in place. So it looks like we got a pretty good repair. Unfortunately, was not able to do any rebuild on this gear, but now that everything's stationary and doesn't shift and move around, it works like a charm. Really works well. I'm tempted to take the passenger side apart just to clean, put back together, and put the same system in. But I think I'll worry about that when it breaks. So I hope this information helps any guys with Renaults, Alliances, Encores, GTAs, etc. And that's it. So thanks for watching.